Hey guys, Grandy Tamayas here, and today I'm going to be giving my thoughts on the recently released Paramount Plus series, Knuckles, based on the Sonic the Hedgehog video game series. Be advised, I will be spoiling a couple of things, but honestly, the main plot doesn't have any particularly huge ramifications for Sonic 3, which I'm sure most of you are going to care about, seeing as the show is supposed to tie us over until that movie comes out. There are some smaller things I will touch on that have implications for the whole Sonic movie universe, and I'll get to those in due time. So, when I first saw this series a couple of days ago, I binged the whole thing, and I had work later on in the day. I work in the kitchen of a pizza restaurant, and sometimes I put my phone up on a shelf and put on a movie in the background while I prep ingredients. That day, I decided to put on the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie, just to see how far we had come with this movie universe. And I soon realized that I had just seen that. The plot beats of the Knuckles show are very similar to the first movie. You have the cop who goes on a road trip with an alien, family members of said cop who have pre-existing drama, the cop gets framed as a criminal yet still goes out in public and doesn't get caught anyway, a villain who wants the alien's energy, and they even reenact that moment from the first movie where the alien has a fake-out death, the cop gives a speech about how Earth is the alien's new home, and the alien unleashes a power that helps him win the day. I will say, while not executed as well as the first movie, I think the show is quite decent. I also want to address the complaint that Knuckles isn't in the show very much. It's certainly noticeable in the second half, and in fact, for pretty much the entirety of the fourth episode, he just stands on a porch while Wade gets kidnapped. But I actually didn't have a problem with this. It's understandable that they can't have a CGI character on screen 100% of the time due to budget constraints, but at least the show always made sure to give a sense of where Knuckles is in relation to other characters and events around him. And in the case of that fourth episode, they did take an opportunity to give more backstory on Knuckles, including one surprising reference to the 2006 game. It turns out that Knuckles had fought the movie universe's version of Iblis and acquired the Flames of Disaster, which he uses in the final battle of episode 6, though this does create a plot hole of why he didn't use it during any of his fights in the second movie. The lore implications of Iblis have me intrigued, since Mephiles isn't hinted at in any way, but who knows how or if that storyline from the 2006 game will be adapted later on. Backing up a bit, I like how the first episode keeps continuity with the second movie by showing that the Wachowski house is still damaged from Sonic and Knuckles' fight. And we know it's at least 1 month after, since Sonic mentions Knuckles terrorizing at least 4 construction crews in a month that Matty has hired to fix the damage. The beginning of the episode also confirms that Tails and Knuckles have officially moved in, and that they have their own beds in the attic. Though, I would be worried for Tom and Matty. They now have their hands full with 3 adopted kids, and it would be ridiculous if they just kept taking in the entire cast of the Sonic series to the point that their house becomes overrun with talking animals. As far as the villains of the show are concerned, the buyer is pretty forgettable. The 2 gun agents were a little funny, but didn't offer anything else of interest. I think they died when the 2 ring portals collapsed in on each other, or maybe they got transported somewhere, I don't know. Speaking of which, I don't think it's explained where they got the rings. Maybe there was some that Sonic didn't pick up when he dropped them in San Francisco, or Gun went looking through the snow after Sonic lost the rest of them in Siberia. I also thought that the part where the gun agent, played by Kid Cudi, says, "Do I look like I need your power?" that line, I thought that was just for the show's trailer, but they kept it in the final version, and it still makes no sense. He would have no way of knowing that Knuckles said that originally. And it just seems like the filmmakers were, again, trying to get a rise out of fans because they know it did the first time. In fact, they continue to do that with the Olive Garden gift card, as it, and Rachel's wedding, get a backstory from the British lady gun agent. Did anyone really need that? Keanu Reeves gets mentioned for the second time in the Sonic movie universe, as Wade has a poster for Speed in his bedroom, which is all the more ironic since now it's been confirmed that he will be voicing Shadow in Sonic 3. I probably should have made a video on that when the news was fresh a few weeks ago, but I didn't because I'm kinda disappointed, not by the choice, but by the filmmakers. I don't doubt Reeves could do a good job voicing Shadow, and I'm willing to give him a chance, but again, it just seems like another attempt to play to the fans just because the filmmakers thought that worked so well after the positive reception to abolishing the original Sonic movie design. That instance was justified, but I think a wrong lesson was also learned from it. caving into fan demand doesn't always make a movie or show better, and I don't think that audiences should be conditioned to getting what they want. I'll still be open-minded when it comes to Reeves playing Shadow in Sonic 3, but I still stand by my first choice of Aaron Paul. I guess while I'm on the topic of Shadow, Episode 6 might have given a hint about his past experiences on Earth. One of the news anchors says that there was an extraterrestrial at the National Bowling Tournament in 1974, which is 50 years ago as of this year. And as I mentioned in my gun conspiracy video, Shadow would have been around in the 70s, so maybe he was into bowling. Even if it was someone other than Shadow, which seems unlikely given the ages of most Sonic characters, I do find it strange that extraterrestrials and their exploits on Earth have become public knowledge since before Sonic arrived. The last thing I want to talk about regarding this series has to do with my previous video about Pachacamac. And yes, that is how his name is pronounced, and I feel pretty stupid for trying to convince everyone otherwise for several years. They even made a joke about the pronunciation of his name in the 4th episode. And I guess they had to because this is literally the first piece of Sonic media where his name is spoken aloud, at least on the English-speaking side of things. For a character that has been around for 25 years now, this has to be one of the craziest pieces of Sonic trivia ever. I guess I should have seen it coming that he was for sure going to be a vision, but in a way, he is also real. Pachacamac is a ghost who can cause visions in people like he does with Wade in the rock opera, and he can conjure a semi-physical version of himself who can phase through floors but also become solid enough to interact with the real world. Sounds familiar. I think Christopher Lloyd did a great job portraying him, and it was a pretty interesting take on the character considering how far removed his personality is compared to that of his game counterpart. Instead of being a remorseless warlord and a complete asshole villain, he's much more jovial and helpful to Knuckles and Wade, even serving as Knuckles' call to action to kick off the show's plot. And I guess since he is a ghost, that means Longclaw killed him, and he was part of the hunting party in the first movie. As far as reconciling his new design with his first design, I guess this is like the same situation of what happened with Thanos in the MCU, where he got redesigned between Guardians of the Galaxy and Infinity War. And we're all just supposed to accept it like it's been the case all along, which I don't mind. Another side effect of changing Pachacamac's personality to be more nice is that it makes the owls seem like the bad guys. With the second movie, and now this show, it seems like they're trying to make the echidnas out to be the victims. And I wonder if the morality of the owls will be explored more in future films and series. Something tells me that Longclaw's importance to the Sonic movies isn't over yet. But for as interesting as I found this new take on Pachacamac to be, it also leads into my biggest criticism with this show. And if you know me well enough, you know exactly what's coming. Where the is Tikal? I swear, this movie series is actively trying to avoid her existence. They did everything short of including her, and they chose not to. What makes it worse is that the show could have replaced Pachacamac with Tikal, and nothing would change. I cannot see how the filmmakers thought to adapt the elements of Knuckles' tribe from SA1 and not think about where Tikal would fit in. Perhaps they did, and they do have plans for her in a future movie or show like a season 2 of Knuckles. But for now, it seems like a squandered opportunity, and if she does show up eventually, she'd have to be altered drastically from the games. Like, maybe she's a different Echidna tribe spirit who isn't Pachacamac's daughter, or, like I said in my previous video, they could open up the possibility that Knuckles is not the last of his kind, and we could see a living Tikal, who was also left behind after the rest of the tribe went to battle Longclaw. I mean, it would be kind of weird if Knuckles was the only one left in the village, and there were no other women or children who stayed behind, which is what the rock opera and the flashback of the second movie seem to imply. Maybe I'm grasping at straws and I set myself up for disappointment to begin with, but I know I'm not the only one out there who has this opinion. Honestly, with what the movies could change about Tikal, maybe her pacifistic personality from the games could factor into the Echidna versus Owl conflict. And I still hope that she would in some way be connected with Chaos, even though Sonic Frontiers did kind of shake up that lore. Then again, that game also introduced a separate origin for the Chaos Emeralds after the second movie did. As far as how I would rate this series, it would be a respectable 6.5 out of 10, but I can't help but be biased, and I have to drop another point for the lack of Tikal. So 5.5 out of 10. I can still recommend it to a casual viewer of these movies, but I would give an advisory that your mileage may vary depending on how much you're invested in bowling. Feel free to let me know in the comments, what did you think of Knuckles Season 1 of 1 so far? Do you agree with any of my opinions, especially about the Tikal problem? And are you excited for the third Sonic movie? If you want to follow me outside of these videos, I'm on Twitter, and I also have a Discord server, both of which are linked in the description. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed, have a nice day, and thank you for your time.